Hundreds of Syrian refugees have fled their camp in North Lebanon after their tents were set alight when fighting broke out between local youth and camp residents near the coastal city of Tripoli. Tensions between refugees and residents have risen in Lebanon in recent years, and the main reason for that is sometimes racism and sometimes anger of local people who blame refugees for taking their jobs during the financial crisis. Lebanon has received more than 1 million Syrian refugees since the start of the war around Syria in 2011. They have become a significant source of cheap labor for Lebanon's construction and agricultural sectors. Damascus urged Lebanon's judicial authorities and security forces to shoulder their responsibility to ensure that its nationals were protected. However, if we follow closely the refugee crisis in Lebanon and in the neighboring countries of Syria, we will notice that the refugees are being used as a bargaining political card with Damascus. It is obvious that Syrian refugees are living in dire conditions on the borders with Lebanon, Turkey, and Jordan because some governments and NGOs are not letting them go back to Syria. These governments and NGOs tell the refugees that if you go back to Syria, then the Assad regime will either murder you or send you to prison. They indoctrinate and traumatize the children too. It is quite clear to any objective observer that these NGOs cannot protect the refugees in these countries from racism or provide them a decent life, and they keep them hostages while making minimum $1,500 salary per month in a country where the minimum wages is $800. Therefore, the NGOs will lose funding and the humanitarian workers will lose their jobs if the refugees return to their homes. If this is not criminal, I don't know what it is. When I used to live in Lebanon, I had friends who worked for these NGOs and their salaries were very good and they rented nice apartments in Beirut and bought cars. They don't care about the refugees. It is a pure business for them. The Syrian refugees on the borders, and especially those who live in tents, should be allowed to go home if they want to. It is very inhuman to keep them live in such circumstances, especially in a freezing weather now. Mara, what's your take on this?
The people that we are talking about, especially the people who are suffering a lot, who have suffered lately because of the very sad incident that happened in Lebanon. It's a crime, not only an incident, it's a crime against those people for their tents to be burned the way they were because of some lame excuse. Whatever the excuse is, there's no viable excuse for this to happen. These particular people that are being kept against their will, that's number one. Number two, even if they have the will to stay, it's been years of brainwashing and years of propaganda that told them that if they dare go back, the regime of Bashar al-Assad will be killing you. And that's absolutely not true. The Syrian government has several times, and especially lately after the crime that happened in North Lebanon, it had emphasized that the Syrian government is ready, it's able, it's ready to help. They are waiting for you at the border to help you get back to your villages. And if your home in your village is not there because of the war, or it's not appropriate for your family to live in, the government is ready to help you rebuild it and refurnish it and get back your life and get back on your feet with your family and go back to your land, Syria. This is basically what the Syrian government is saying, but you have great propaganda with the help of the mainstream media, obviously, that they are still using the same old song of the Syrian regime led by President Bashar Assad will be punishing people for leaving. Why would he be punishing the people for leaving? He wants the people to come back for his government to function properly to begin with in the extremities where the people had left, and at the same time for the people to go back to their life with dignity, with protection, with a viable future despite the sanctions that Syria is suffering from. But if they are kept in Lebanon, what good would that bring them? An entire generation was born into the refugee system in Lebanon or Jordan or Turkey. Why would that be a viable option for them to continue? The only logical option, the viable option, the option that would prove to be the best for the future of the kids of Syria, especially the generation that was born into the war, the best option for them is to go back to Syria, go back into the system of education, the system of healthcare. Despite the sanctions, the healthcare system in Syria still provides free healthcare for the public. Despite the sanctions, public schools certain private schools also give free education. Despite the sanctions, Syrians also get help in the form of subsidies from the government for fuel subsidies, for other very important daily lifestyle subsidies that could help any family, especially like the families that we see in the refugee system in Lebanon, for example. So to end my thoughts with this topic, I truly believe that it is one of the last goals for the current NGOs and some of the governmental officials in Lebanon as well, who are directly affiliated with the West and with the United States of America in specific. It's one of their goals, but it's no longer a priority for them. So now would be the perfect timing for us to make them stop this playful maneuver of not allowing people or just brainwashing people not to go back to their countries. It's now time to talk to these refugees, to get someone from the Syrian government, from the government side, from the Syrian side, to come talk to them and ensure them that they will be protected, that no one will ever touch them. They are Syrians to begin with. So I think now is the time for Syria to be coordinating with the Lebanese side, official side, especially now before the new government is formed, because if the new government is formed, Saad al-Hariri will again say, I don't want to start any talks with Syria. So now with Hassan Diab in office, I think it would be the best time for the Syrian side, through the Syrian embassy in Beirut, to try and relocate these refugees back home, take them back where they belong, away from all of the system of impoverishment, system of racism, system of keeping people at low standards of living only to make money on their behalf. This has to stop.
Thank you, Marwa, for your insight. I've been your host, Georg Almasian of Syriana Analysis. If you like the content, I invite you to subscribe to my channel. It really helps me a lot.